Hello everyone. Let's create the Angular 17 project, and I'll go over one by one folder as well as the file and its purpose. So let me open the terminal. So to create a Angular project, ng new, the project name, and standalone false. So basically from Angular 17 onwards, if you don't give this particular standalone false, it is creating a independent individual module type of application, not the complete full structure of application. So 17 onwards we have to give standalone false. So I'm selecting for now just the CSS, and I don't need server side rendering. So now it is creating the project. It will take few minutes. So the project is created. So let me just start the application and see. So this is the Angular 17 structure. So now the application is up and running. So this is the basic Angular 17 application. Let's stop this application. And we will go over one by one file and its purpose right now. So if you expand the project, so to start with, editor config. So this is the file. Basically, it helps to maintain the consistent coding styles across the team of developers. Meaning like if you have 4 or 5 developers in the team who are working on this Angular project, every time when they pull the latest changes from the repository or clone the repository to their local and create the branch, so every time it will maintain the same structure and the spaces and same indentation in the Visual Studio Code, so that it will be consistent across the developers. So that is the purpose of this particular file. So the next file is git ignore. So this particular git ignore, if in real-time applications where we will have a repository like Bitbucket or maybe GitHub or any other GitLab, so when we push our changes to the repository, so there is no need to push some of the files, because these files are going to be auto-generated again when wherever we run the application, whether it is on the cloud or any other place. So there is no need to commit these files to the repository. For that reason, we have a git ignore. That means it will ignore so from the git repository. So any file that is not relevant and no need to push to the repository, you can give that a particular file path or file name, so that it will be ignored when we commit the code to the repository. So the next file is readme. This is just an informational file where it will show the what CLI that we are using and the folder structure, and how we can run the application like ngserve, and how we can generate the component and all. This is just an informational file about this project, how to run, test and build the application. Other than that, there is no real meaning or real usage for our application with this file. So the next file is angular.json. So this is the important file, and this is a configuration file for our Angular application. it will have details as configuration details, like how to build and run the application for all the environments like development, testing, and production. It will have the commands like ng build or ng serve, and when we run those commands, what exactly it should do. So that particular specific configuration it will have, that specific configuration it will have. So for suppose if you see new project route, which is projects, when we build the application, it will create a folder called projects. Let's just build and see how that goes. So let's build this application and see. So now, right now, so the build was done. Okay. And if you see, there is a folder called dist. This one generated after we run the build. Okay. So how this particular file folder was generated, and how this is a minified version of the application, and how it should generate, and every detail and the configuration is added as part of the angular.json. If you particularly look at it, and so this is a build instruction. When we build the application, what exactly it is doing, it is going to application and going to the dist folder. It just created the dist folder. Under the dist folder, the project name, folder structure, if you see the project name, folder structure, and within this the index file and a browser like the main ts file, and whatever the configuration that is needed to build. So it just followed this total instructions from this build and created the dist folder in the local. And there are some more additional configurations. If you see the budgets, which is what would be the maximum size of the project when you build. So this particular dist folder, there is a specific size, right? Memory size. So if the application is very big and it has a lot of components, when you build the application, it might go beyond this limit. So it will throw an error saying the memory is not enough. So that's when we can come here and update these numbers, and when you build it, it will work properly. And if you see the serve instruction, if when we run the ng serve, these are the instructions that it will follow to run the application. If it is a development, it will use this development. If it is production, it will use production. This particular instruction. When we run serve ng serve, this command, that's when it will be triggered. So not only this, when we run the ng test, like instead of ng serve, when we run ng test, this will take this particular instruction. If you see, it is looking for the spec.json spec files configuration. This particular configuration, any file that is starting with ending with spec.json, that is a test file, and it is going to use the styles, the major style file. So this is the full instruction as how to when you run the test instruction ng test, what exactly it should follow to run this application. So that type of a configuration that we have right now in this angular.json, this is one of the most important and the configuration file. So the next file is package.json. This is one of the most important file. So in this package.json, this is the project name, and what is the version of this particular project. This will be useful if we generate a library out of this Angular project and exporting that library and publishing into our internal repository, or maybe Git repository, internal library repository like Nexus repository or some other internal repository, and let the other teams or other project use your library So for that scenario, in that case, the library, when we generate out of this particular project, it will have a folder structure as a library name, and this is going to be the version of that particular library. But right now, uh, these are just a name and a version. Okay. And this script section, in this scripts we provide the instructions of how to run this particular application, or how to build the application, or how to test. So in the previous discussion, we looked at the build instruction within the angular.json, right? Where we have serve, build, and test instructions. These are the instructions. When we run this, it will go to the angular.json and it will run that specific instruction accordingly, and the instructions that are provided in these scripts. And the next one is, there are two type of dependencies for Angular. So these are the mandatory dependencies. That means without these dependencies, application is not going to run at all. And these are optional dependencies that are useful when we run the application or when we test the application in local, and even for the development purpose only. But even without having these dev dependencies, application is going to still run properly without any issues. And in these dependencies, all the dependent packages for our project, we are going to make an entry, and it will download that specific it will download that specific package into node modules folder. We'll talk about the node modules later. And for suppose if you want to add one more new package that you want to use within your project, you need to make an entry here, or you can run npm install -- save and the package name, so that it will automatically make the entry into this particular package.json file. So the next important file is package log.json. So whatever the dependencies that we added as part of the package.json. So for suppose we said 17.2.0, right? Package log.json, whatever the version that is exactly downloaded into node modules, meaning whatever the exact version that is used for our application to build and run, same entry of that specific version it will have. It will maintain the record of each and every package that is used in our application, including the exact version number. Okay, so when we run this application in local, if it is working fine, and delete a package log.json file and push it to repository, and somebody else pull the latest changes to their local, and when they run npm install, this package log might change based on the latest version that is available in the node npm. It might get the latest version, and it might not work in their local. So that's why this is a file that is important, and we shouldn't ignore this file. We should commit this file to the repository, so that other people, whoever pulling the changes in your team, it will have they will also get the same version when they install, so that application works on both the computers, even the test environment or production environment also. So the most important folder in this is src. So this is where all the actual templates and actual application files are going to be located. And so we will look at it one by one. So if we expand this app folder, so this app module file, it will have all the dependent modules and imported modules for our application. For suppose if you see, there is the app routing module, which is providing the Angular routing feature to this application without importing this module. If you try to write the routing from navigation from one page to another page, it won't work. So if you want to use the Angular forms, like input the text box and all these things, it won't work directly unless you import the forms module from Angular. So any module that you want to use from Angular, or any third party or custom module, and it should have an entry here in the import, so that it will be available to the application. And the next file is app.component.ts. This is the main important file and first file that is loaded, and whatever the content that we have in the app component will be rendered by default on the first page of the application. If you see app HTML file, whatever we have in this file, that's what is rendered when we actually started the application. So let me start the application one more time just to show you. So now the application is up and running, right? So this content, whatever the content on the default route, like 4200, this is the default application route to our application. This is the default route. Okay. And by default, this particular app component content is rendered, right? Okay. So this is coming from this app.component.html. I think this one taking it as a project. Okay. Yeah. If you see hello and the title, this title is coming from app component. This is a folder structure is the title. So on the first page of the application, hello folder structure, this is what is rendered. So by default, app component dot app.component.ts is going to be rendered, and I'll show you how this is rendered and how this particular file is bootstrapped as a first page. Okay. And we can even add a route in the routing file, app routing.module.ts file, and we can directly route to the different component also instead of directly rendering the app component. And app component.css, this is the CSS file where we can make all the entries of the CSS classes and that are applied to the app component.html file. So only the relevant CSS classes for this HTML should be added here. So this is a component specific. That means app.component. These three files are related to app.component, and spec file is a test file. If you have a Jasmine or Karma test cases that you want to write, so those test cases will go under this particular file. And the next important file is routing. So this is the route file. Routing meaning navigating from one page to another page in the Angular. All the routes that we want to use in our application, we should make the entry of the routes here within this, like a URL, and you can say login and component. Login component. If you have a component, right now I didn't create any component, that's why it is throwing error. Otherwise, this is how it should be, and we should make the entries of all the routes here, so that based on the route, it will navigate to that particular component. Okay, the next folder is assets. So this particular assets folder, it will have we can add only the images or like a videos, only the static content that we can place here, that is available to the app folder. This is the app folder, is the actual application that is going to be rendered, right? If you want to use any image or video or something which is static, we can keep that in the assets file folder, so that it will be available to the app folder. So the next important one is node modules. If you look at the node modules, it has all the libraries that are downloaded right now. So these libraries are downloaded based on what entries that we added in the package.json. So when we run npm install, it will download all these dependent libraries into node modules. And even if you delete this particular node modules, you can still run npm install, and it will create that file again. If you see, the file came back again, and it is installing all the dependent libraries. It is the local repository to run our application locally. Okay. So the next important file is tsconfig.json file. So this particular file, it will have the TypeScript configuration for the project, since Angular is of a TypeScript framework. So how this TypeScript should be rendered, and what kind of a ES and what kind of a ES version it should use. All these things specific to TypeScript configuration that we are going to add in this particular file. Usually in real time, we don't make much changes to this particular file. And the next one is the next important file is index favicon icon. This is the icon, Angular icon, that is displayed on the UI. Basically this particular icon and this particular icon, favicon. So this is just a plain static icon. And if you see, the next file is index.html. So it is the main file that is rendered to the browser, and the content of this file is going to be replaced based on the user navigation in the application. And even if you see this particular Angular application, if you see, this is a HTML file that is rendered. So this is the main HTML file. Within this HTML file, there is a body. Within the body, that app component is rendered right now. Okay. And if you see this particular app route, this is the place where the app component is rendered right now. Within the app route. And if you see the app component, there is a selector called app root, right? App root. That means in the index.html, we are referring to that particular app root, because we are referring to, basically when we run the application, this index.html is going to be rendered based on the instructions in Angular.json. If you see the index, so index.html, this is the file that is going to be rendered first. Within this file, there is a body, and within the body we are referring to app root, which is app component.ts, which is, we are referring to this particular app root. For that reason, app root component, whatever the content within this app root, is rendered onto the UI. So that's why we are seeing this app component content on the main page. So that's how the routing is done to the main app component project, app component file. Okay. And one more important file is main.ts. So this particular file, if anybody coming from the Java background, they are already aware of main method within the Java class. So that is the main entry point to the application or a program. So similarly, the main.ts file is the entry point for Angular application. And if you see, it is bootstrapping app module. This is the entry point for the application. And the next file is styles.css. So this particular file is a global CSS class. So whatever you assign here, or suppose if you say button, okay, I added a background color as black in the global style. Okay, let me just add button here. Okay, let me just run the application. So if you see, currently the button background color is black. This particular this right now the button is in app component, but the button CSS is part of the style CSS. This is a global CSS. That's why it is applied to the app component. Not only this, any component, any CSS that is added in the styles.css, it will be applied to the entire application, including all the components. So let's place the same CSS here and we will override it to different color, or let's override it to pink. And if you see right now, this particular button background color changed to pink. Why? Because the precedence of the CSS, if you notice, if there is a CSS within its CSS class, okay, right now the button is here in the HTML and its own CSS class. If there is a exact CSS that is used within this particular CSS itself, it will override the parent, which is the styles.css. This is the global CSS, right? So this will be applied only if there is no CSS here in its individual CSS file. So because there is a CSS here for the button, so it is overridden in this particular parent child class. And if you again get rid of this one, if you remove this one, again global CSS is going to be applied. If you see, so the global CSS black color it is applied. Okay, so I think these are the folders that we need to learn and understand, each and every folder. And I hope this makes sense. If you have any questions regarding this folder structure, keep the comment or follow me on Instagram. Thank you.